Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge. A historic day, by the way, because for the first time since World War II, a ship was sunk by one of our submarines. And that is part of the story of what's going on in Iran and the Indian Ocean, folks. We'll have the 411 for you on stocks, futures, and some sports on today's Rebel's Edge. What do you think, Justin? Do I look younger without the goatee? Maybe.
The goatee completes you. I can't imagine what you'd look like without the goatee. John, let me ask you this.
My wife doesn't know either.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that China's, quote, moral support helped Iran feel better after that ship was sunk by one of our submarines?
No. I mean, again, it shows you, folks, that you don't want to go shopping for your defense equipment on Temu, because apparently the Chinese and the Russians, through a combination of Temu and whatever the site is in Russia, the stuff they bought didn't do much in the way of defense. And in fact, the submarine, the U.S. submarine that sunk apparently in that unclassified footage that many of us have seen on Twitter, that the Secretary of War posted. First submarine sunk a ship with a torpedo since World War II, and it was an Iranian battleship that is now somewhere at the bottom of the Indian Ocean. So as he said, if you threaten us, we will hunt you and we will kill you. And I would take that man at his word, because they're clearly doing just that to the people that support the regime, at least the people that support the regime over there. They haven't gone after the people that support the regime over here, but there are some, unfortunately. Well, Justin, let's dive right into a little macro. And I'll start it off with the ADP released there, of course, private sector, because we get from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, easy for me to say, BLS, we get that on Friday. But we got the report today that showed 63,000 jobs were created in February, surpassing the 50,000 that were called for. And it seems that we're continuing to talk about the conflict in the Middle East, but we're not really breaking to the upside on either VIX, XLE, or crude oil at this point.
Yeah, okay. I've got two of them. My first one is that the things that are doing very well are the things you want to do well. It's your Micron, it's your Shop, it's your Western Digital, your SanDisk, it's your Robinhood, it's all your growth stocks, Coin, MSTR, I could go on, right? The things that maybe aren't doing as well are some of those names that have gotten bid up so much over time. I think at the beginning of the day when I looked, a lot of the laggards were in the energy sector. Well, okay, maybe it's because the U.S. is about to have a pretty good control on the world of energy now that Venezuela and Iran are sort of in the background. That's my first thing, and that's a good thing. I think that's a good sign for the whole of the market. But my second thing is the death of the Sell America trade seems to have come as quickly as the Sell America trade came. For those who don't remember, in around Liberation Day, a bunch of people freaked out, and then everybody started putting out all these articles saying, hey, we're selling all the American stocks. We're going into EEM. It's going to be a great idea. And then if you look at the Kospi Korean Composite Index over the last 2 days, they have had what we call a circuit breaker, a downside move of more than 7%. Yesterday, it was 12% that they fell down. A lot of other names are in that same basket.
Ouch.
And like John said yesterday, if, that money's got to go somewhere. Doesn't just disappear, it changes hands, and maybe some of that's going to end up back here in America.
Yeah, and as Justin and I said yesterday, I was just looking through some texts real quick while you were talking there, Justin, but it wasn't just Iran that caused us to be down 1,200 points yesterday. as soon as the European markets closed yesterday with those big 4% losses and so forth, the selling stopped. Imagine that. So if you were Sherlock Holmes, would you say that there's a cause and effect here? In other words, that the cause of the selling wasn't just, it was partially, of course, the war, but was the bigger cause the panic in Europe as their markets were imploding, and they got to raise cash someplace, and so they are selling over here, and you see what we saw, folks. And we tried to give you that insight yesterday, and I believe we were successful when we did. All right, let's talk about the VIX. Both the VIX and the OVX, that's the volatility of crude oil, folks, OVX. Both of them are down, and the VIX is barely holding on to 20 right now after being up in that, whatever it was, 26-ish or 27-ish range, just cratering right now. And one of the reasons is allegedly Iran has now reached out through diplomatic channels, if some of those are still open. And how do we know who we'd be dealing with anyway? Because each time a new Khomeini takes over, Israel takes him out. Because that did happen yesterday, folks. Some guy a son of Khomeini was appointed the new supreme leader, and I think he held that role for about 5 hours before he was eliminated. Oh. So I would think that there's a lot of nervous people over there and a lot of volatility coming out of our markets over here. What do you think?
Very well said. And I'll just say that my future is the ES. That's the S&P. Mm-hmm. And keyword today is the 100 MA. We just closed right at it yesterday, but couldn't get above it today. Clearly well above it. Looks like we're just going to keep on trucking. That's a good sign for momentum.
Yeah. Well, again, I've expressed Justin many times, and Pete, by the way, was stuck in LA. So Justin was kind enough to stand in and do a great job, as he always does. So thank you, Justin. But yesterday we spoke about prediction exchanges and why I prefer that versus polling, because again, nobody pays me to take a poll. So why would I ever answer anybody in a poll? But if I can make some money off of it, I'm more than happy to do that. Made a little money off of Jasmine Crockett because she just tanked, folks. And that was ahead of the full count, of course, which was last night because it's Tuesday. And she was not running for her representative seat in the House. She was running for Senate. And as I said, I thought she embarrassed herself so significantly that even the Democratic voters were not at all interested. Now, that's, of course, a primary, folks. You know what that means, that it's going to be a run between the primary Democrat and the primary Republican. But those prediction exchanges nailed it. And now we've got a new one for you today, folks, because our prediction exchange today, I think many of you will like it, was who is favored in the March Madness. And we said who the top 4 would likely be yesterday. Well, it turns out Duke is indeed number 1. And there's a lot of money on this one, folks. I mean, when you look at it, that's $38 million have been bet so far. And you see the surge in Duke and the flattening of Michigan, not because they've played each other here, but because the confidence apparently that the people have in Duke being the number 1. Michigan had been holding on to a pretty substantial lead from November all the way through basically much of February. And then that lead pretty much vanished. And now it's surging with Duke taking the lead. And again, $38 million, a lot better than some polling of a bunch of sports writers or polling of sports bettors. Instead, this is actual dollars being pushed across the table, Justin. I always favor that.
Yeah, I'll do one more last time that we talked about prediction markets, I talked to Pete about the Jesus one. I bet you probably know that one, right? The will Jesus come back down to earth?
Oh, please. Okay.
Oh, you don't know
I
that
did
one?
not know.
Oh, man, I was going to
didn't
talk
know
about
people
Powell
were
Bingo,
betting
but that's
on
way
that.
cooler. Yeah, okay. All right. So I was having this conversation, ironically, with another one of our analysts. I won't say their name. Great guy. And they were saying that everything in the market is arbitraged out. There's no edge in the market, a lot of the time because the blah, blah, blah. Like anything that we know will happen is already priced in. And I pull up this poly market bet that's essentially 96-4 odds. Sometimes it's 95-5 odds. Jesus Christ returns to earth and walks the earth in the year of 2026. Real bet. There it is. There's your 4% right there. Has that been arbitraged out, or is that sold because people are impatient, right? People don't want to wait on poly market until the end of the year. And oh boy, if Jesus Christ does come back, they're going to have egg on their face. So I just thought that's a fun one.
Let's talk about swim. And as the name implies, these guys are a swimming derivative play. Now, how so? Well, they are the largest swim pool producer. And they basically used a lot of, fiberglass pools. And apparently that helped them hold on to a big lead over their competitors, so much so that they bought, I think, Freedom Pools or something like that. And anyway, the guidance that they put up was extremely strong, and that stock was up as much as 35%. Now, it's only holding on to about 18% of that, though, Justin. And unfortunately, it's a small enough stock. It's right around $1 billion that we haven't seen much in the way of option trading in this one.
Yeah, but it's a great call out, though. It's funny. Sometimes you see one stock in a certain sector rise and the rest of the stocks in that sector rise. But it led me to, when you told me about this, look at Pool, Pool, which I think is a Buffett holding, to see if they were doing well. They actually fell seemingly on this news, maybe similar to what you had noted. Hey, there's only so many pools to go around. There's only so many people who want pools. And if it's going to swim, then maybe it's not going to pool. So hey, big win for them.
Big win for them. All right, let's take a look at the digital assets. Coinbase, Marathon Digital, or MARA, and Strategy, which used to be called MicroStrategy. Well, we're seeing Coinbase move up pretty notably. And we're seeing Bitcoin break 73,000 to the upside. It seems that the Clarity Act, with the regulatory tensions and everything else, that could certainly be one of the reasons people are betting that these digital assets will be moving higher over the next several weeks, even if they haven't been viewed lately as a safe haven. What do you see here, Justin?
Yeah, and I think that last statement is kind of an even better idea of why they might be moving to the upside, right? We have Trump coming out and talking about the Genius Act, the Clarity Act. That's going to help. But also, usually Bitcoin doesn't bottom out when everyone views it as a safe haven. That's too easy. Bitcoin starts bottoming out when everyone says, oh yeah, of course it's bottoming out. It's going to zero. Oh, of course it's bottoming out because it's only worth as much as people will pay for it. Well, a lot of currencies are that way. Gold is theoretically that way. And yet these things continue to move higher. I think it was a really good spot for it to bottom out when you have these Bitcoin miners like BitDeer saying, all right, we're capitulating. We're selling all of our Bitcoin. We're just transitioning into data centers. And here's the Bitcoin trading right around where it topped out back in 2021. It was poetic exactly to see it bottom out here. And I would bet that this is, I know we're not supposed to say stuff like this. No, don't bet any dollars on this, but I would bet that this is probably the bottom realistically in Bitcoin, at least in that 60-70 zone.
Yep, I would agree. I certainly think that regulatory clarity, something that Mark Lopresti says all the time as a lawyer, not just as a trader, is something that will stabilize those assets, and couldn't agree more. All right, let's take a look at another stock, ROST stores. What are they? Well, in case you've never been in one, it's not exactly TJ Maxx, but they have a lot of discounted items in those ROST stores. And apparently, earnings per share of $2 versus an estimate of 189 was enough to get people feeling at least a 5 or a 6% rally. Revenue was over $6.5 billion, which exceeded the expectations as well. So ROST might not seem like a super exciting stock, but nonetheless, it is a stock in the space that, as you see there, pushed it pretty hard to the upside going into the earnings and then with these earnings.
Yeah, and you love to see it because they're not alone in the consumer discretionary sector starting to make upside moves. We had Target yesterday with earnings that honestly, Target's earnings weren't awesome, but the stock ended up doing pretty well. It ended up over 5%. I think we saw Best Buy. I believe we talked about that one, right? Another consumer discretionary name. And those aren't even the only mall names either. I'll just cut it there. But a lot of these lower end sort of mall names that I think a lot of people think are representative of the consumer are starting to recover. And that is a good look for the economy.
Well, let's wind it up with BW, which is Babcock and Wilcox. What a great name, Babcock and Wilcox and BW. Many of you are out there probably saying, I've heard this name never before have I heard this name. But why are Justin and John talking about it? Well, their backlog surged dramatically. Their backlog being, of course, just like with Boeing, okay, how many planes have people ordered, but you can't deliver them yet? That's an example of a Boeing backlog. Well, with this one, these are data centers, and they just can't keep up. And yet, people bet on them for the basically growth of data centers. And Justin already described BitDeer, which I like after this big sell-off. And we had some unusual activity either this morning or yesterday, I think. But this one, a $2.5 billion contract for an AI data power infrastructure. That's why this stock is moving the way it's moving today. Again, BW.
Yeah, and make no mistake, I like BitDeer too. I talked about this in a couple of days ago because I said, hey, look, even if they sold Bitcoin at the bottom, it's probably, let's be honest, going to take longer for Bitcoin to double than it would for BitDeer to double. And if they can juice their own stock with all that money, hey, why not? And I'll also say that's not even the only data center AI news. Honestly, that whole sector is on fire today. We're seeing Iran up a ton. NBIS just got approved for a gigawatt AI data center. It is so nice to see all of these headlines come out at a time where people were really starting to cast a lot of doubt and a lot of shade on this cohort of stocks that has been beaten down pretty hard during this, SaaS apocalypse, even though they really have nothing to do with software. So I'm very much rooting for the data centers, even though you're right. I was not somebody who knew what BW was before this segment.
Yeah, well, it's a hot sector, as you say today. And I don't think any of us are going to be sad about owning some stocks that have been just taken out to the woodshed that are part of this, like NBIS, like CoreWeave, or like this one, Babcock and Wilcox. I just think there's opportunity there. And as long as you have a strong stomach and or you learn how to trade options, I think it's a good spot for you to be, folks. All right, let's dive into a little sports. Again, Pete is stuck in California. I'll let him tell you whether or not he wants to rip the airline that left him stranded there. But apparently that airline is one that Pete flies a lot when he's not on the jet. And he was not happy about flying out there to do a podcast and some interviews, expected to come back last night and then couldn't because apparently the plane wouldn't fly. So let's talk about sports with Justin Nugent, folks. Free agency, top three. Who are the top three? Well, it's going to be offensive line, Pete says. And I think some of you know why, because Tylen Lindbaum is a center for the Baltimore Ravens. And yesterday, Justin, the starting center for the Chicago Bears, all 17 games. So, not an injury-prone guy. This was his, I think, 4th or 5th year in the league. He's only 27. He announced his retirement yesterday. And, a lot of these guys make enough money, and I'm not judging him. I don't know what the pain is like that he feels. I don't know if I hadn't seen that he had a lot of concussion protocol issues or anything like that, but his issues are his issues. And at 27, he was willing to walk away from, I don't know, somewhere between 19 and 25 million more dollars, because he just signed the contract when he came to the Bears. Prior to being with the Bears, he was playing elsewhere. The Bears got him for one year. Now he's gone. That's why I say this Lindbaum guy from Baltimore, the Bears better be after him, because we need a center. And you don't want to leave Caleb Williams out there on an island. So that's my number one pick in terms of free agents right now. Do you have any guesses or strong feelings about this yourself?
My only strong feeling is that I can't get mad at anyone for retiring at 26, 27 years old in the NFL, right? I'm sure even if he's not had a bunch of concussions, he probably wants to just keep it that way. He's saying, hey, all right, this is enough money to just go buy a farm somewhere and go hide and not have my body hate me too much throughout the rest of my life. So I don't hate it, even though, what was the figure that you described? 90 something $million?
No, I think his most recent contract was right around $50 million, okay. 45, 50 million. But he's walking away from, and he got some of that was guaranteed. But if you're injured, then the guaranteed part pays off. But if you walk away, I don't believe it is. So I think he's walking away from in the neighborhood of 19 to 25 million over the next 2 years for that contract. And that's a tough thing to do. So it's this tough decision to do that, but especially because I think he made all pro this year. Wow. All right, let's hit one more before we go. Let's hit Kyler Murray. Now, many of you may be fans or wanted to see Kyler succeed because of his great collegiate career. This one, and I have nothing against the player, but he does not have the size to be an NFL quarterback. And the fact that the Cardinals spent as much time with him as they did, good for them. Show me some 5'10", 207-pound quarterbacks that have really lit it up in the NFL. They are very few and far between. And in fact, you could probably count them on one hand, even the guys that in the last 15 years have started, forget about starred, as a 5'10" quarterback. I mean, it's really tough to see over the offensive line for guys Brady's size sometimes, because again, his legs are spread. He's putting himself in position to throw the ball. He's not standing straight up, and he's 6'5". You take a guy that's basically in the neighborhood of 7 or 8 inches shorter than that. It is a hard task to find the player to make the throw, even if your arm is as strong as Tom Brady's arm. And I don't know if this guy's arm was that strong, but anyway, he is allegedly one of the players. Yesterday, Justin, you and I talked about Tua from Miami. Perhaps the Vikings looking at him. Kyler Murray, are you kidding me? This is a guy that the Vikings would also be considering. I don't think either are an improvement over J.J. McCarthy. I just don't. What do you think?
I completely agree. I think the Vikings are just in it. I want to win now, get desperate type of mode, seemingly with this with this headline. So I could not agree more.
Well, it's not me being a hater, but it is me being, I think, applying logic and statistics. Statistically speaking, we are not seeing Doug Flutie type quarterbacks. And I love Doug. Doug is a friend. I think he's a great quarterback. He might have been one of the last great quarterbacks who's under 6 foot. I mean, Drew Brees, I guess, was as well. But man, when your size means that the defense can play a different way against you, in other words, you've got to scramble out of the pocket to get a throw. You can't be a pocket passer at under 6 foot. It's just really, really difficult. The exceptional skill somebody would have to do that, okay. But I would have gone after a Phillip Rivers, the guys that are 6'5" and so forth, or 6'3", not the guys that are 5'10". But, I guess they didn't ask me with the Cardinals. But if they did, Justin, thank you so much. Again, folks, Justin does a fabulous job at Market Rebellion. We all appreciate the work that he does with Trade Monster AI. And you guys should check it out because it's a breakthrough product that we've pushed this year, and you'll be hearing a lot more about it. So, Justin, have a great afternoon. Trade them up, my friend. And I think Pete will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll see you then.